Hello, everyone. This is Ale from the Vendoo team. We're just going to wait about 2 to 3 minutes for everyone else to finish joining. So meanwhile, we wait, we're going to publish a poll that you guys can answer. And then in a few minutes, we will go over these questions and these answers with our guest. So feel free to answer the poll, which is about to go live. All right, everyone. Hello, and thank you so much for being here. As I mentioned, my name is Ale. I am VP of Marketing at Vendoo, and we are super excited because this is our first webinar, and we really hope to be hosting many more in the next few months and weeks. So right before we get started, I wanted to talk to you just to give you a little bit of introduction, a brief summary about Vendoo. So Vendoo is a cross-posting software that allows you to cross-post to multiple marketplaces with just a few clicks. So with Vendoo, you can cross-post on Poshmark, Depop, eBay, Grailed, Tradesy, Kidizen, Mercari, and Etsy. Tradesy and Kidizen are being gradually rolled out. They're our newest marketplaces, so all our users will be able to see them in the next few days. All right, so if you guys are new to Vendoo and if you're interested in trying that out, you can sign up for Vendoo and get 40% off your first month subscription with the code webinar40. So once you go to the checkout page, just make sure you use the code webinar40, all in lowercase, as it is case sensitive. So now I do want to give this over to Josh. Josh is one of Vendoo's founders. He's also the CMO at Vendoo. So yeah, he's going to be moderating this webinar. So welcome, Josh, and welcome all our guests. I will see you all in the Q&A session. Bye.
Thanks, Ale. Hey, everyone. So thanks for joining us. We're really excited about having this webinar. We wanted to talk to everyone about how to grow and scale your reselling business, because we know that depending on what size you are, no matter if you're a part-time seller or a full-time seller, or you sell a lot of items or a few items, everyone wants to grow and expand and scale and make more money. So we're going to touch on a few topics today and get some insight from some resellers that have been very successful in this space to hear some tips and tricks about how they've done it and how they've gotten to this point. We hope that you guys get a lot of valuable information from this webinar. So before we get started, I just wanted to explain that as I can see, you guys are already active in the chat, which is great. And you can continue writing in the chat. But if you have any questions that you want to be asked to the panelists, please put those in the Q&A section. So there's a separate Q&A section that's different from the chat. That way we can keep the questions separate and we can make sure that we can ask those at the end and get answers for you. So before we get started, Alejandra, if you can put up the results of the poll, that would be great so we can check out people's responses to those poll questions.
Of course. Let me just end the poll right now. All right.
Okay, so it looks like almost everyone attending is currently reselling. The primary focus is increasing sales and time management. So we're going to touch on all these different topics. eBay and Poshmark seem to be the most popular marketplaces for everyone that's attending. And a lot of you guys have never used Vendoo. So welcome if this is your first introduction to Vendoo. Ale gave that coupon code at the beginning. So if you're curious about Vendoo after this, you can reach out to us on any of our social media platforms, which is vendoo.co, or you can send us an email to hello@vendoo.co and we'll get you some information. You can also check out our website, which is exactly the same. It's vendoo.co. So I just wanted to give a little bit of background information about our panelists and introduce them and bring them into the chat. As we were starting Vendoo in 2017, we began traveling around the country and just explaining this idea to resellers and getting their feedback. And in 2017, we attended a reseller rally in Chicago, where we were fortunate enough to meet Josh from Vogue Squared, Nicole State, and also Reezy Resells, who's going to be joining us a little bit later. These sellers were it was really exciting for us to meet sellers that were active in this community, that were always constantly sharing insight and tips with the community. And they gave us a lot of feedback and support building this process. So we wanted to make sure that we can include them in our first webinar. We felt like that was very important because they were important also in our development. So if you guys can turn your cameras on and join us, we have Josh from Vogue Squared and Nicole State.
What's going on?
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Nicole first and then to Josh. You guys can just introduce yourselves a little bit to the viewers, explain where you're from, how long you've been reselling, what you sell, and kind of how you got to this point in your business. I mean, you can summarize that, but we can get into the details later, but basically just introduce yourself to the viewers.
Yeah, thank you so much, Josh. That was really nice. I remember meeting you at the reseller rally, and it was really exciting to hear what you guys were doing. And you have come to a lot of the events that I've put on, and I've seen you multiple times. You've hosted me in DC before. So this whole journey has been great to watch you guys, and I'm so proud of you for how far you've come. And you really developed a tool that resellers needed. So it was a gift to our community as well. hold on, my headbud or my earbud fell out. There we go. So anyways, I'm a full-time reseller. I've been reselling full-time for the last 5 years. I focus on women's fashion, like current styles. I have a few different streams at this point. So the bulk of my sales are coming from Poshmark. I do also sell on ThreadUp and Mercari here and there. And then I also sell in a storefront as well.
Okay, thanks, Nicole. Awesome. And yeah, we have seen you in a lot of different cities. We came to a Christmas party that you did in Portland, which was cool. We saw you at Posh Fest in where was it, Arizona. So we've seen you all over the country. You were here in DC a few times. So it's been a cool journey in the past few years. So I'll pass it over to Josh and he can introduce himself and tell you guys a little bit more about what he has going on up there in Detroit.
How's it going, everybody? My name is Josh, and I am a full-time reseller with 3 employees and 1 full-time and 2 part-time. Resell in Michigan, been reselling since high school. My buddy who works for me was the one who actually got me into it, so it's kind of cool to have both of us together again. I went full-time. So I went back to school to get my MBA and then dropped out after first semester to do reselling full-time. And that was, I think, about 6 years ago. And I sell on Amazon, eBay, Etsy, Grailed, Poshmark, Bonanza. There's probably a couple others, but yeah, I sell on a lot of platforms.
Awesome. When I'm browsing Grailed and different sites late at night, I often come across your listings. I see a lot of stuff that you're selling. Maybe you sell a lot of things that I'm interested in or something. But
yeah,
there's
probably
I always
like
come across your listing.
10 or 15,000 items on there.
Wow. Okay. So the topics that we wanted to cover today are all focused around growing and scaling your business. So we want to touch a little bit on inventory, how to scale up your inventory and start listing items and selling items at a higher quantity. We want to talk a little bit about finances, so how to manage your money and allow those funds to help you build your business and invest it in the right way. And then we want to talk a little bit about time management, so tools that you guys may use to save you time, or like Josh mentioned earlier, he has employees, so we'll touch a little bit on that. But we'll start with inventory sourcing. So you guys have each been selling full-time for a few years, 5 years, I think Nicole, 6 years for Josh. I know at different points along that journey, how did you realize that it was time to step it up and take it to the next level? And what was the first thing you did in order to start to get your inventory up to larger quantity numbers so that you could expand your sales? Nicole, you can go first, I guess.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I've had ups and downs in my reselling business. So for a long time, I thought that I wanted to scale really large in reselling. And I got an office space, I hired multiple employees, I did all this stuff. And then I realized after a lot of hard work and ups and downs that I didn't want to scale like that. So I took it back a notch and I stepped away from having an office space and employees. I have one person now who helps me. She comes in and like takes photos and builds some listings, but my kids are really small and I really like my husband. And so for right now, I'm just kind of like focused on that. I realized when I was trying to scale, like I almost got a divorce. So for me, it's really not about scaling right now. It's about like staying level and finding those multiple streams of income. So maybe I'm not scaling up my inventory in my Poshmark store, but I am doing other things like finding a store space to take inventory to, because that doesn't take as much time. I'm surprised, Josh, you haven't found one of those yet. You're like the man of every color here.
Doing what?
Sorry. So I sell in like a it's like a round 2, but it's like there's a ton of different vendors in there.
Oh, you sell directly to them, or you're actually in there? Like,
no, I have my own space. So I think there's 10 or 12 of us, and we each have our own space in the store, and we bring in our stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I like selling online, so I don't have to meet people.
Well, I just pay someone to like take it and price it. Like I literally do nothing, so it's great.
Oh, that's perfect.
I just take stuff that I don't want to sell online there. So anyway, my point is that I'm not about scaling right now. I'm happy with where my business is. I want to keep about 600 to 1,000 active listings, and that brings me in around 15 to 20,000 in sales every month, and that's where I want to be.
So how did you get from selling a few listings, like people that are just getting started, selling 10, 20, 50 listings a month? How did you find yourself getting from that starting point to the 600 items a month point?
So for me, it's just been slow and steady. I am really dedicated with my time. So every day I have time blocks that I work in. And I think a lot of it is just, I don't make excuses for myself. Like, I know it needs to be done and I sit down and list. I see a lot of people who say, like, I can't list more than 5 items a day. And you just have to say, yes, you can. That's just not true. You can sit down and you can list. And so that's the thing, is you go out. In the beginning, you're going to buy a lot of stuff that is probably a bad purchase, but that's okay. Start off at places like the bins and learn. That's what I did. So I went to the bins. I'm paying 50 cents to $1 for these items. I look back at my hauls from the very beginning and I'm like, what was I doing? That stuff is horrible, right? Like, yes. So, and then try and get your average sell price up. So when I started, my average sell price was like $10, and it's still relatively low, but it's getting higher and higher. So that's something to focus on too.
Okay, and Josh, as we can all see, you have a ton of items back there behind you. So I know it didn't start off like that. So how did you find yourself in a warehouse space or an office space with that many items behind you? How did you get to 15,000 listings?
Employees, but no, I just really started by since I started in high school, I kind of knew the ins and outs already before going full time. I mean, I didn't know exactly, but the decision was super easy for me to go full time because it was just me supporting myself. I didn't have a family or anyone to worry about. But a lot of it's just grinding. It's a grind at the beginning, like you're putting in a lot of hours. And now we just have a system where I'll go out thrifting, or I still thrift quite a bit actually, but I do a lot of bulk buys too, a lot of store buyouts. And I mean, once you build that knowledge of like what you're looking for, what certain brands sell for, and even you want to expand your knowledge to not only brands, but like styles and like color blocking and stripes and like whatever's in, you got to follow those trends. And I think being on like Instagram and stuff really grew the business a lot more because I was able to see what other people were selling and pick the brains of people and meet people like yourself and Nicole and many other people. And I do bulk buys from there too. But I think it just listing every single day is going to be your best bet to get.
Awesome. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but there was 2 points that I wanted to touch on. I saw someone in the chat ask, what are the bins? So when resellers refer to the bins, they're mainly talking about Goodwill has certain locations that allow you to buy clothing in bulk by weight. So instead of going to a regular thrift store where you would have to buy items off the rack that are individually priced, the bins allows you to essentially dig through huge containers of clothing, shoes, hard goods, and buy them depending on the weight. So you're paying a lot less per item, and it allows you to buy more inventory at one time. So I think that seems to be the key. I think when we were talking before we started, both of you guys mentioned that you've been buying in bulk. And I think that might be a way that people can start to step up the quantity of their inventory if they're looking to put out more to increase their output. The bins might be a perfect place to start. So I think that was a good tip that Nicole gave. But also buying in bulk, without giving away your secret sauce or anything, like what are some how do you go about finding places to buy in bulk? Nicole and then Josh, you guys can answer.
Just to touch on the last question, like one more time, is that there's just not a secret recipe. Like Josh said, it is just about grinding and getting the work done. But as far as buying bulk, that's really about networking and making connections. Like I once bought out a whole thrift store that was moving across town, and that was just me being able to connect with people and talk to people when I go into stores. I try to go to like local events, even like moms groups, like join your local community because you'll meet people that way as well. So I'm a part of a few gyms, and like I buy from all the ladies at the gyms now. Like that's how I get all of my good fitness wear. Like I go to this really expensive Pilates club, but the stuff I get from the ladies there like pays my membership every month. So it's like it pays off, right? Like it's like so you have to think about this stuff. So like I go in there and I'm like, oh, you're the owner. Hey, I'm a reseller. Like after a few weeks of being there, and this is what I do. I'm never afraid to tell people what I do. And so from that has come an incredible amount of inventory. And then as far as bulk buys, again, just making connections, being on Instagram. I just bought out a reseller who was moving across the country, and that was just from being on Instagram. He knew who I was. He reached out to me. He said, do you want to buy this? And I said, yes, I do.
And Josh, you can answer the same question about just buying in bulk and finding those type of leads.
So I kind of have the opposite story a little bit. Like a lot of it's been pure dumb luck, or like I'll like to chalk it up to luck. Like the first big buyout that I had, it was the aunt and uncle of a guy that I worked for like 4 years, or no, I worked for him for a couple years. And then the other one, I was actually getting tattooed, and I was on a break, and I walked by the store and saw some vintage shoes in the front. So I just popped in, started looking around. I was like, there's some vintage stuff in here. And I was like, do you guys have any more of these like old shorts? They're like, oh yeah, in the back, there's a bin. Everything's $5 back there. And I'm like, okay, these sell for $60 used. So they're all brand new. So I asked, that's the thing is like, if you're in a store or whatever, and you see some old stuff, ask if they have more, because they probably do. And this guy had a basement full of stuff. So
my story is very similar.
So
when I go ahead, you can finish.
I mean, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you reminded me. So my story is almost exactly the same. I come from like a sneaker collecting background. So when I got into reselling, it was mainly just through sneakers, like in the early 2000s. And when I was in college in Delaware, I was still hunting for sneaker stores and different places to find good stuff, and stumbled across like some mom and pop stores that just had crazy inventory from like 20 years ago. And they had like backstock inventory in warehouses, and they were willing to start wholesaling it to me for literally, if a shoe cost $200 or $100, they were selling them to me for $30 a pair. And I was buying a lot at a time. And then the more I bought, the price started getting lower and lower. And I was able to build up some quantity that kind of got me in the game early on. Before I even really knew exactly what I was doing in the reselling space, I stumbled across a wholesale buy that kind of got me started. And that's kind of interesting because before joining Vendoo and starting this company, I was reselling for almost 10 years, pretty much full time. And I wasn't social. So I wasn't in the reseller community online. I wasn't really talking to people in stores. I was kind of secretively finding good stuff and reselling it because I was slightly afraid that people would find out where I was getting my stuff from and get it before me and things like that. So I wasn't really communicating too much with a lot of other resellers and talking to them about how they sell and taking things from their strategy and applying it to mine. So I think that's one takeaway that's really important, is that this is really a strong community and there's a lot of information. A lot of these sellers have a lot of information. I know I started off specializing in sneakers and then menswear, but then I look at people like Josh, and he sells vintage furniture and things like that. And you start to see what other people are buying, and it opens your eyes to different types of inventory that you can expand to once you tap into this community and the people that are in it.
Yeah, that's where I really started like getting into furniture, was from Thrift Love Sell on Instagram. She had just a ton of furniture and hard goods and stuff. And I was like, oh, I'm sure there's stuff around here. There's a lot of mid-century modern, bigger companies based in Michigan, like on the west side, like Grand Rapids area and stuff. So it's been fruitful.
would you advise people to expand outside of traditional thrift stores to like estate sales, garage sales, yard sales, places like that, just to kind of diversify the type of items that they're buying or the places that they're sourcing from? Because I know a lot of people get into a sourcing routine where they go to the same places every few days and buy the same type of items and don't really expand their search outside of their local thrift store.
Yeah, I would say, like, if you don't have a lot of money to start with, thrift store is going to be your best bet. Or it's actually not even going to be the thrift store. It's going to be asking your friends, your own closet and all that. Start there. But yeah, after that, I would definitely just start test buying stuff. That's the thing, is like, if you're shopping at thrift stores or estate sales or any of these places, like, if it's most likely going to be cheap enough that you're going to make money on it at no matter what price it sells for, as long as it's obviously more. But yeah.
Nicole, do you have any insight or opinions about expanding your search?
Yeah, I think that thrift stores are not even the best option anymore. I think that garage sales are my favorite. That's where I've always found my best deals. And like Josh said, you can ask them, like, do you have more of this? And you can make that connection. And if I stumble upon a garage sale and they have great stuff, I'll say, like, hey, next time you're clearing out your closet, like, give me a call and I'll come buy it all from you, so you don't have to deal with this. Like, and I think the biggest thing is just making those connections and telling people what you do and talking to other people.
Awesome. So I don't want to stay too long on inventory because we have a few more topics to touch, but I wanted to move on into finances. So as beginner resellers or people that are just reselling as a hobby that want to transition to part-time and then to full-time, I know most of the money that they invest into their business is into inventory. But do you feel that there are other places that you should also invest money that are essential to help you grow, or is investing in inventory at the beginning the most important part?
If you're talking about like day 7, then yeah, inventory. But if you're talking about day, I don't know, 172, then you probably should start looking at getting an accountant. As far as finances go, get an accountant. I didn't the first year and it was the worst. I paid way more in taxes than I ever have, and I've made significantly more after that year. So when I look back, I'm like, what was I doing? Like, so get an accountant. They're going to save you money in the long run, and it's going to take a lot of pressure off your shoulders.
I would also, to add to that, just open up an LLC. It costs maybe $100. I think, yeah, I got an LLC right off the bat because it just makes you all official and you can keep all your finances with that credit card, that bank account. Everything's the business bank account, all that stuff.
Yeah, the biggest thing I see people not do is get a separate bank account, and you need to do that day one. Like, get a separate, if you think this is going to be a thing where you're going to make income month after month, you need to separate out your finances.
Absolutely. I was going to say that I think the earlier you treat it like a business, the easier it is to turn it into a business. So you said create an LLC. When you create an LLC, can you start to take advantage of things like potentially writing off your mileage to the thrift store? Is that something that you guys have ever done or looked into? I know there's things that resellers can do in, like, there's operating costs and business expenses that it takes to run a company. If you neglect some of those business expenses, like Nicole said, an accountant, or if you're not treating it like a business and writing off things that you can potentially write off, are you leaving money on the table? Are you not treating your business with the most care and detail? What do you think?
That's why I think it's important to, like you said early on, treat it like a business, because you can start writing off all of this stuff. I write off mileage, and it's like things you may not even think about sometimes. Mileage, your cell phone bill, if you had an office, obviously any expenses that go with that, any packaging supplies, any supplies for the business, meals, I think it's like 50%.
A portion of my like your mortgage can be written off, like if you have a dedicated space in your house.
Yeah.
So I think these are all things that resellers, even at early stages, should look into and be knowledgeable about, because you can essentially make your business a lot easier on yourself if you take advantage of some of these things that an LLC has to offer earlier on.
Someone did comment saying that you can do
Yeah.
that without an LLC. That's true. That this is all true. Like, but and I'm not an accountant, but in the IRS's eyes, like, you're gonna look a lot more legit as an official business. So if you're worried about any audits or anything, like,
Yeah.
Okay.
So
just be a business.
if you want to make this into a business, I agree. Turn it into a
Yeah.
business. I don't think you need to get an LLC right away, personally, but I think you need to talk to a tax. So Oregon, like, we don't have sales tax here, and you have sales tax. Like, there's so many different things depending on where you live that it's really important to just go and talk to someone about what you need and what's best for your business.
Yeah, so one thing that Nicole mentioned at the beginning of this question was separate your reselling funds and money into a separate account outside of your personal money, just so that you can keep track of your actual numbers, and it's not getting tangled up with the money that you're just using for living expenses and personal, so that you can see how you're really profiting and what you're really spending, and really have a good grasp on what the numbers are in your business. Because a lot of people pay attention to how many items they have for sale and things like that, but they're not calculating their actual numbers. So when it comes to calculating your actual numbers, Nicole, you suggested that resellers get an accountant early on. Are there things that you do to prepare for tax season as a reseller? Is there anything that you suggest that beginner resellers should start to take advantage of when they're preparing for tax season, or be aware of, just to make sure that they're getting the most out of their taxes, like the way that they do their taxes for their business?
Yeah, get QuickBooks, get some sort of accounting software. I run a profit and loss sheet at the end of every month, and then I keep those. So Joe, my husband, kind of keeps me accountable, and he's like, have you ran your profit and loss yet? And then I give it to him, and then I can also see like where my business is at. So you can get some sort of software. QuickBooks is the easiest for most people. And that just is going to link up to that separate bank account and credit card that you have. It's not as complicated as you think it is at the end of the day.
And Josh?
Yeah, I also use QuickBooks. I got kind of lucky. I have some smart friends who are in finance. So one of them does all of my profit and loss statements, and then he connected me with an accountant that they use for some of their startups. And so I've been, from day one, I was connected to those people. So I haven't had to worry about, I just give him access to the QuickBooks, and he does all the numbers, and not something I want to think about, because I know I'm not good at finances. So, well, personal finances I am, but like all that nitty gritty, like figuring out all the, no, I'm good.
Literally, if you have a QuickBooks and a separate bank account, the credit cards that are just for the business, like, you're pretty much done if you hire an accountant.
Okay. I've spoken to a lot of resellers who say that they donate inventory at the end of the year, just so that they're not sitting on a ton of inventory. And that's also something that they can write off. Is that something that you heard of, or something that you've ever done? Either of you? No. Okay.
Yeah, I don't.
Awesome. All right.
I max out my donation for that every year, though. So there's a max amount that you can do for that. And I max it out just through the year, redonating stuff. So.
Okay. So I'm sure there's probably some more questions related to finances and taxes and things like that, and we'll cover those at the end. But we can move on to social media presence. So I know social media is very much just a personality-based thing. Some people like to share a lot of information about themselves and their business. Some people don't. But do you feel like social media has helped you in any way growing your business to this point? We talked earlier about how this is such a tight-knit reseller community, and there's so much information to be gained from being active in this community. So how do you think social media plays a role in growing your business? Whoever wants to take it first, Josh.
I think it's grown my business immensely. I didn't join Instagram, or I joined Instagram pretty early on in the business. but was not that active the very first year. I mean, I was active, like looking at people's profiles and stuff, but I wasn't like, people thought I was a woman for the longest time. Just because I never posted like.
Wait, I remember that.
I didn't post my face or anything. And so people were surprised when I finally did. And I think what really, it's funny because he's not here, Reezy. I think that event kind of like expanded social media even further in my eyes. And I have wholesale connections right now with people that I met through Instagram, never met in real life or anything. And I'm buying inventory, like a decent amount of inventory from them. So I think Instagram's important, but you also don't want to get like, it can be a time suck too. So you got to know why you're on there and what you're doing. Otherwise it can kind of take over your life away from reselling.
Hey, Nicole.
Yeah, I have obviously used social media to grow my business. And to Josh's point, it can totally be a time suck. So for me, I make sure to monetize my social media time at this point, because you have to know what you're doing and what your point is with being there, because you can absolutely go down rabbit holes. You have to be careful with like who you're getting information from. There is a very broad community, and there's a lot of people who are new, and so you have to like kind of find what you're looking for and the people that you're looking for. But yeah, I think that having a social media presence is important to a point, but it's not necessary. The resellers who I know who actually make the most money aren't on social media by any means. They're busy like putting in work into their business. They're not trying to have a social media presence. So whenever people tell me like that I'm only successful because of social media, I know that's not true, because I see the people who are not even on social media absolutely killing it and doing numbers that I can't even imagine. So I don't think it's necessary to be on social media, but it's fun. And if you want to be on social media and you want to learn that way, then absolutely you should do it.
So I know a lot of people are on social media for that reason. So to get information, to connect with sellers. You guys both do a little bit of content creation, and you kind of document your reselling process. Josh, you post a lot of things that you find daily. You post big buyouts when you do big buyouts. A lot of those are very inspirational for me because it makes me want to get up and go find some stuff. So do you feel like not just from the participating in the community aspect, but from the actually creating content aspect, do you think that's played a role? Like, have you found people come to you for insight? Has it created any opportunities for you just because you've created content, not just consumed content?
Yeah, definitely. I get people messaging me all the time like, hey, can you tell me if this is real or not, or vintage or possibly decade? And I think I like posting kind of just random, my random finds that I think are cool that some people may not, but I'm building it more for myself, like to document my journey, and then what comes along are people that will reach out, and then some people reached out and I've bought their items, and like it's a fun community to be in, I think.
And Nicole, do you think the content creation has made a difference? Not just the participating in social media, but the creating content for people to where now people come look to you for information. Has that created opportunities for you?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that we forget that like back in the day, people would go and shop mom and pop stores because they knew the owners and they had this relationship with them and they built this connection with them. I ran a consignment store for like 6 or 7 years, and I'd have the same people come in week after week just to chat with me, right? They want to know who they're buying from. And I feel like the social media is kind of the modern day version of that. So people know who I am, they build these relationships with me, and they come back time and time again, and they shop with me. I've had, like I mentioned before, buyout opportunities from that. And I think, social media is probably, I have had huge growth thanks to social media.
Yeah, I can say the same. I've always posted reseller content, thrift store finds and things like that, mainly because I'm excited about them. But then I transitioned into making reseller tips and short form content and long form content. And I transitioned those from my personal platform, obviously, onto the Vendoo accounts. But even from doing that and posting things on my Instagram story, calling back to what we mentioned earlier, I get maybe 10 to 15 messages a week of people asking me, hey, do you buy things? I want to get rid of all these things. So I know definitely creating content and putting that reseller information out there has attracted a lot of people to me personally, and a lot of opportunities to me personally. So I think that if you're comfortable with sharing your journey, if you're comfortable with documenting how your reselling experience is going and things that you're dealing with on a daily basis, it will definitely draw people to you who have questions or who want to help or who are just like-minded. And I think that's a great way to just grow and scale your business because it'll present new opportunities to you. So with that being said, we've talked about social media. So let's talk about time management and tools. So I know that Josh mentioned earlier at the beginning that he has a few employees. I know Nicole, I think your husband works with you a little bit as far as shipping and things like that. But are there any tools that you guys use to manage your time? Or are there any tools that you suggest that resellers should invest in that would save them time and help them to spend their actual physical hours in the right place?
Vendoo. There's this really cool tool called Vendoo. But for real, Vendoo is a great tool, and I use a app called Hours to kind of time manage myself to see how much time I'm spending doing a certain task, and then I'm always trying to improve from that. So speaking of social media, I use an app called Later, a program called Later to kind of, if you want to get into social media to help grow your business, it's a great tool. It kind of helps you post like forward and plan things out a little bit better. But for the most part, I don't have like a ton of, there's no trick, right? There's no trick. Vendoo is great because you can cross list, you can manage everything. But outside of that, I don't have any, you just put your head down and you work, essentially.
And Josh?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Vendoo or any software that's going to help cross post for you quickly and accurately is going to be a huge time saver. But with me, I had to look, because I didn't hire an employee until 3 years in. So I had to look at the benefits of hiring extra help, and that allows me to delegate tasks that they can do, and then I can go either do stuff that's going to help grow the business, like make connections with people, networking, just going out, thrifting, trying to find bulk buys. Yeah, anything that's going to free up extra time for you that you can then focus into expanding the business. If that's your goal. Some people, they may not want to expand, and that's cool.
Yeah, so that's, oh, Reezy.
Reezy.
Welcome. Can you hear us?
I think so. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. So
all right,
everybody, Reezy Resells has joined us. Reezy, Nicole and Josh introduced themselves earlier and gave a little insight on who they are, what they sell, how they kind of got to this point in reselling. So if you can just give everybody a little introduction on who you are and what you do, and then we'll just kind of fill you in on what we've talked about and what we're talking about now.
All right, cool. So if I can figure out how to get my tripod to not die on me. So my name is Mike. I go by Reezy Resells on the internet. My last name is Resendez. I've been reselling full-time for over 15 years. Now I make more money actually teaching others how to do reselling through YouTube, social media, and all that content. But I still do that. I'm actually in my warehouse right now. It's kind of messy and I can't really show you guys too much without exposing some of my products that I don't want to share with you guys. But for the most part, over the last 15 years, I sold used books. I grew up as a poor kid, a troubled kid, you know, food stamps, welfare, government healthcare, all that stuff. I was homeless, you know, I was the kind of kid that would go to my friend's house and like, hold on a second. I don't know why. Did I lose you guys?
We can hear you. We can't see you.
Oh, I don't know what happened. That was so weird. We're back?
Yes, you're back. Perfect.
Yeah, hold on. I think I need to put my phone into do not disturb mode real quick. Someone's trying to call me or something. I'm sorry, guys. Anyways, I was like that. I was that poor kid. I would go to my friend's house and fill up my backpack with their chewy bars from the pantry. You know what I mean? I went to juvenile hall. I didn't have a lot of options. I had a kid when I was 15, got married, dropped out of high school, lived on my own since then. And through selling used books on Amazon and just being a reseller and knowing, you know, how eBay works, and I did eBay way before Amazon, I was able to not only take myself out of the 9-to-5, but also retire my wife, you know, elevate my style of life a lot, you know, because I used to, you know, just eat the crappiest food, drive, you know, cars that would break down all the time. And now I'm able to, you know, I had enough success to invest a lot of time into doing social media and YouTube and teaching others. And at first I did that kind of stuff just to make money. You know, I wanted to be a YouTuber, but now I also make money, but now I have this sense of passion and fulfillment that I never had in my life before, that didn't come from money, because I grew up so poor that as soon as I made 100,000 a year, I was like, you know, anything after that didn't really get me going. You know, I didn't want the Lamborghini, you know? And so having that new thing in my life, like to help others and the passion and like feeling like I have a purpose, you know, that kind of really changed my life. And that's where I'm at now. I still resell, you know, a lot actually, but for the most part, my focus is actually helping others, which is why I'm glad to be here and help you guys out too.
Can you, just for inspirational purposes, tell everybody why you were a little bit late?
Oh man, so I was late because I had my biggest sales day ever. We actually sold just under $35,000 in a single day, $34,800, and it was 99% the same item.
That's it?
Yeah, all the same item. That's it. Yeah, 34,800 in one day. That's it, you butthead. But yeah, it's by far my biggest sales day ever, and it's not you know, profit versus sales or whatever. I think it was a little over 8 or 9 grand profit or something, but it was literally all one product that you just put a label on the box and UPS takes it. I didn't do anything other than risk a lot of money and house it in my warehouse for 2 months and wait for the price to come up. But the price did come up. Actually, I have 50 more units, so I'm probably going to make another, I don't know how much more, but it's very, very exciting. And unfortunately, yeah, that was why I was late, because I had that crazy sales day yesterday and then I was all psyched. I totally forgot about the webinar and I was more focused on getting those out, having my UPS shipment picked up, because I'm not going to take, you know, a bazillion trips to UPS. So unfortunately, that's also why I'm here at the warehouse and not at my house, because I just got done with UPS. You know, I literally just paid off my UPS guy and slipped him a nice something, so that take care of him. You got to take care of your people. You know what I mean? But anyways, that's why I was late, and I can't wait to show you guys the video. I'm actually vlogging right now, so I'm documenting this on this camera while we're doing this webinar, and this will be in the vlog. And I just told a little story about how we met the Vendoo guys back in Chicago. And also, I hope you guys don't get too mad. Josh, I was talking about some 3 a.m. Hennessy shots at Daily Refinement's house. So
Hey,
we're all adults, though.
We're grown.
Yeah,
so,
we're all adults.
Well, we're really happy that we have you here. I know a lot of people in the chat were anticipating your arrival. So I just want to go back. We've covered a couple of topics already, but I want to go back and just get your insight on some of the things we've talked about. We've already heard from Josh and Nicole, but we started off talking about, so the whole concept is how to grow and scale, right? So everybody, no matter what point they're at, they're trying to grow to the next level, improve their business a little bit, make more sales, make more money.
Yep.
That's kind of the goal of the reseller. And we touched originally on sourcing inventory, right? So there's people that started sourcing, they might've just started listing 20 things that they had left over in their house, and then they got into thrifting and they're selling 20, 30 items a month. But how do you know that it's time, and how do you start to make that leap from selling 20 items a month and trying to scale it up to hundreds and then thousands and then the quantities like you're doing currently?
Cool. Well, that's like 4 questions in one. So whether or not you want to scale it to whatever you want to scale it to, you know, that's a different question because everyone has different needs and, you know, you'll deal with this till this much of stress or it's this much money, you know, so everyone is different. But the one thing that's universal is that when you still have a job, for example, you know, that's a really good example. You still have a 9 to 5, you know, like when am I going to quit my 9 to 5 to, you know, become full-time reseller? It's kind of like the same thing. It's, you know, when you're at work and you're pretty damn sure you could have made more money if you wouldn't have went to work. Every day you go to work, you're like, man, I screwed up. I went to work. Like, damn, like, you know what I mean? Like, but only when you know it, like you really, really know it, because when you do, you know, hustle on your days off, you make more than the days you go to work. You know what I mean? And then, so obviously you want to wait till, you know, your income is approaching a certain level and you have whatever saved, whatever your thing is, but then, you know, you jump when it's time because the money tells you, you know? And so just the same as when you are a solopreneur and you're doing, you know, you're a one man or a one woman show and you're running the whole thing, there will be times when you are packing orders and you could have made more money. You know, like say, for example, you have a really good sales day, like I just did, and you have to pack orders, and you have to get them out, like whatever, you're kind of tied to getting those orders out and running your business. And then you miss another sale. When you miss inventory sourcing opportunities because you're doing things that aren't sourcing inventory related, that's when you need to hire someone to help you start doing all those things that, you know, aren't inventory sourcing related. Inventory sourcing is the most important part, aside from maybe pricing, you know what I mean, and like accounting. But other than that, let someone else list the items and take the pictures and do the customer service. You need to focus on getting more inventory, whether that is, you know, you buying services or subscriptions that save you time so that you buy your time back and you have more time to do more stuff, to source more inventory, or you get a Filipino VA for $2 an hour and you buy your time back, not even in just your business, in your life too. Buy back your like 3 hours a month, you pay your bills, or like, who knows, whatever dumb stuff you do, you know, get your time back so that you can use it for the more profitable activities, right? And so when I think of scaling, I think of doing the more profitable activities and focusing on them, but you only have so many units of energy, you know what I mean? So if you want to deploy all your energies to that, you need to find some more energies to put over here. So the only obvious answer is to hire, right? And also, I think hiring in general, it's kind of scary, you know, but you can warm up to it, you know, like first you get like subscriptions and tools and software and maybe a VA, and now you kind of understand it a little bit. Then you start paying someone for like a little bit of part-time help, you know, maybe you have that friend that you can call when you have 300 orders to come through and pack, you know, and you'll pay them 10, 15, whatever's good. I don't know. And then maybe they need some more work, you know, it's like, it's just a trade-off, right? Like, how big do you want to grow? What are you up to? Do you need a little help? Do you need a lot of help? And then there's also the thing about that threshold. Like, it's harder to find part-time help than it is to find full-time help. I mean, it's hard to find good help regardless, but if you have a full-time job, there's more people that want a full-time job. There's less people that want a part-time job. And so it's kind of, you know, and then also you have to structure your stuff, you know, if you want to give someone a part-time job, how are you going to sell them the offer when it's like, yeah, come over on Tuesdays and on Saturdays in the morning? Like, no one plays that shit, you know? So I think it's obvious because you'll have that feeling, which is that hustler feeling, that same feeling you have when you resell something, is you're like, oh, I'm losing money. You know what I mean? And it's the same reason I can't keep these Xboxes or PlayStations right now. The price is too damn high.
That was an awesome answer. Thanks. We also, as far as inventory scaling, we talked with the three of us earlier about buying in bulk, like going from purchasing single items to buying in bulk is a good way to scale. I know that you're a huge bulk seller. So how did you decide that you wanted to stop buying a few books at a time and then start buying larger quantities?
Great. So this is a great question because I haven't even talked about this on my YouTube yet, because I actually stopped selling bulk books, right? So this is going to be a fun one. So for my entire career of pretty much 15 years was cherry picker, meaning I go to places and get books, right? Sometimes I have them come to me, but for the most part, you know, I'm getting them in one at a time, two at a time, bags at a time, boxes at a time, not a truckload, not a pallet, you know, no kind of regular delivery, you know, nothing's secure. And it's fun because it's adventurous, you know what I mean? But at some point, and it's different for everybody, right? Like, what do you value your time with your family, your personal time? You know, for me, you know, I could be doing more Reezy Resells stuff. That makes me more money than focusing on chasing down books and reselling, right? And so I switched over to bulk thinking that was what I wanted. And ultimately I found out I didn't really like it because it had the money side of it, but at the same time, it didn't have any of the good side that I liked about the thrifting. There was no thrifting, right? There was no being out. There was no competing with other people. There was much less very good finds. It was just, you know, pour through a ton of shit to get a bunch of mediocre, really average, you know, low average sale price, low average profit, just work. And that works. But if you have other options, you know what I mean? There's a lot of better stuff, especially where I live in California, to do with that amount of square foot of space and labor, especially now during fourth quarter. So what happened with us is we were profitable. We invested 20 grand, started it up, made all our money back in a couple months, had 2 full-time employees and myself and a part-time employee, weren't losing any money. Was paying everyone, you know, barely enough to make them pretty much not quit, which was, you know, a lot from my standpoint, but, you know, California, you know, is expensive and people want to get paid a lot. And so we were gonna probably, you know, we were gonna do $250,000 in the first year of books. And we were probably gonna clear like, I don't know, like 70,000 profit or something like that. And when COVID hit, we lost our supply of books. So all of a sudden we had no truckloads of books coming in. And after about, you know, 3 months of trying to do everything we had in our warehouse of work and sending people home in half days, and we had to let everyone go because we had no more work. And then we finally could get the work back. So the supplier calls me, hey, it's like the week after I let everyone go. Hey, we're back. And literally, like, it was not a bad breakup. My employees hate me, right? Like, there was bad words spoken. So they're not coming back. And hey, you want the contract? Let me call you back. I basically have like 48, maybe 72 hours to get this contract locked down, or my competition is going to get it, right? When it opened back up. And I'm sitting in a 2,000 square foot warehouse by myself with no help, thinking, so what am I going to do? Lock this contract down with myself with the forklift, receive, unload all of these, then post ads, then hire people, then go like, and I'm like, and it's fourth quarter, you know what I mean? So for me, the fact, even if it wasn't fourth quarter, it just became super obvious to me that that wasn't what I wanted to do as far as reselling with my time. So kind of at that point, I was like, I'm going to pursue online arbitrage and wholesale and retail arbitrage, or some combination of that, because and especially during right now, this year, this fourth quarter is it just wasn't what I wanted. You know what I mean? I don't want to manage people. I don't want to grow a giant business. I want to free myself from the 9 to 5 and have a life doing what I want to do. You know what I mean? Like, and growing a big business just seems like a big headache to me. I'd rather make a profitable small business and, you know, have less pieces in my machine. So for me, bulk wasn't what I wanted, but you know, a lot of people are driven by money, and I'm not really driven by money so much. So that's kind of where I stand with that.
Okay, great. That's really insightful. We talked also a little bit about managing finances. Just as when you're running a reselling business, it's really important to be on top of your numbers. Nicole advised people to separate their reselling money from their personal money, whether they open a new bank account or whatever. We also talked a little bit about like things that we do to prepare for taxes. So Nicole suggested get an accountant as early on as possible and things like that. But when you were starting this journey and still trying to figure out how to manage your finances in this business, what were some things that you did to kind of stay on top of their finances?
So I didn't do anything right at all for the first few years. And I don't want to go into too much details and basically snitch on myself, but I wasn't playing by the rules. And now, and it was cool at the time, but I had to pay for it in the long run. And so now everything I do is completely by the book, and it's super important to have everything separated. But like back in the day, when I first finally started like doing at least something, it was like, oh, sign up for mint.com because it's free, or there's a couple other services like that, and they'll link with your bank and pull your transactions. It's kind of like a shitty version of QuickBooks Online, but it's free. And they have like, you know, it's kind of like smart. It'll remember that like when you went to 7-Eleven, that was a snack or that was gas or whatever you said it was last time, you know. And you can pull data from there, and that will help you out, you know, versus just having your credit cards at the end of the year. Like Nicole said, the first thing you want to do is just separate everything. So get a separate account for reselling, at the very least, a separate credit card. So I don't know if this is like financial advice, but if you're going to be buying a lot of stuff, you might as well use a credit card and get either cash back or air miles. So also pay off your card in full every month, you know, and understand what utilization does to your credit score. It's not the best, but you might as well get those air miles, you know. Those were things that I did early on. What else early on? I mean, I used to do my taxes myself, like TurboTax or like Tax Slayer, you know. I think the first year I sold on Amazon, I did my own taxes like on paper, like I just printed it out or something. But don't do that. Keep everything separate. Keep all of your transactions separate. If you do yard sales and you have cash transactions, have a ledger that you use just for cash transactions for your reselling business, that you can keep notes in it. You know, the people you buy from don't have to like sign it or anything. It doesn't really have to be that serious, but just have, you know, a ledger with different dates and cash amounts and places you went and where, and, you know, little memos or whatever. And that will really help you out if you get audited. What else? I'm trying to think. Get that Mile IQ app for your phone, because it tracks your mileage in your car and you get a deduction for your miles, right? So that's good, and that's free too. I mean, it's kind of like one of those things where when you don't have a problem yet, you know, you can handle it yourself, right? And then when it gets to the level where it is a problem, you can afford to hire someone, right? So don't, I think, you know, most of us probably will go through like 1 year of tax hell and then be like, that's enough of that. You know what I mean? Next year, we're not doing this again. So if you want to avoid one of those years, you know, get the jump on it, because it's cheap, right? You're going to spend, if you don't do it right at the end of the year, you have to pay a lot of money for your accountant or CPA to like organize everything in a rush. And you could do it yourself, you know, an hour a month, couple hours a month. At the end of the month, you just go through your QuickBooks Online, which is like, I think 10 or 20 bucks a month, and just, you know, categorize the stuff it didn't categorize. And then at the end of the year, everything's G in your CPA or your accountant or whatever. It'll be a lot less work for them and ultimately save you money. But another thing too is learn to leverage your business for your personal, you know, self. So you might not be paying yourself from your reselling business yet, but maybe your reselling business can pay your cell phone bill. Maybe your reselling business can pay for your gas in your reselling car, or every other tank of gas, or little things like that are business expenses that you can personally benefit from as well. So just little stuff, you know what I mean? Like, that's what business owners do. You live out of your business as much as possible. Anything that's plausibly a business expense, it is.
Awesome.
I'm not an accountant or a CPA, so that's all pretty much fictional story, if you ask me.
But yeah, you gave a great insight. You touched on a lot of things that we spoke on earlier. I saw a few people in the chat asking about the mileage tracker app. I believe that one's called Mile IQ. Is the app that tracks your mileage so that you can write off your mileage. So I think we have you caught up to the topics that we've covered, which is perfect timing because we want to do a Q&A. So people have been putting some questions in the chat. We're going to bring Alejandra back in, and she can start to read off some of those questions, and we can get some good answers from you guys so that everyone in the chat can feel like their question was touched on.
Awesome.
So Ale, if you're there, you can come back in and help us out with the question.
All right, perfect. So our first question is from Mary, and she says, how do you guys decide which item to sell on which marketplace?
For those of you that sell on multiple marketplaces, I know Josh, you
Yes.
sell on a ton of marketplaces. Nicole, you're on a few. Reezy, I'm not sure what platforms you're on now, but
I mean,
do you put everything everywhere, or do you
I'll
segment?
take all the questions. So let these guys answer some questions if they want. I think this is a good one for Josh.
So everything goes on eBay that I buy, everything. Unless it's for Amazon, then it goes on Amazon. But from eBay, then it goes to Grailed and Poshmark, and then if it's vintage, it goes on Etsy.
Cross-posted, right?
But yeah, I cross-post on eBay, Etsy, Grailed, Poshmark. I think that's it.
Do you list for the same price, or do you list at market price on the app?
I
On the
don't
platform.
I don't really look at, unless I don't know what the item is. I don't look up solds or anything. I set my own pricing. I don't follow any past solds.
As do all the pros. It's the only way you can list stuff really fast is if you're not looking up every single item.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you the last item I looked up.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know Nicole's the same way, aren't you, Nicole? Nicole?
I actually still look up a lot of stuff.
Hi, by the way.
Oh, hi. Nice to see you. Glad you made it.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I still look up a lot of stuff, actually. It's one of those things, but I'm also paying
when you're sourcing or when you're listing or what? I feel like
when I'm sourcing. So like I bought a pair of $70 shoes yesterday. Like, yes, I look them up to make sure. Like if I'm gonna invest more than I would say $50, then I definitely take the time to like see what it is.
Right. But when you're at the bins,
no, everything goes in my cart. I go through it to make sure that there's no holes in it, and then I call it good.
Right. Yeah. So for me, I would like to list it on the platform that would make me the most money. But before considering that, I also have to consider the friction involved in listing the item on the platform, right? Because different platforms have different pros and cons. And even more importantly, I'm much more comfortable on certain platforms. And so even if I'm going to make a little bit less, I'll probably list it on Amazon just because it's easier for me. So that's kind of where I go with that. But if it was a crazy disparity, I would not only be listing it on a different marketplace, I would be buying it off of Amazon and then selling it on that other marketplace as well. So it's not just what makes you more money. You know what I mean? It's also what, is less friction for you. And also where are the customers at? You know what I mean? Like you're going to sell a good vintage tee, on a certain, maybe that's going to go harder on Depop or Etsy than, eBay.
Okay. So Josh mentioned that you start off with eBay, which is your primary, and then you make sure you put things on Grailed or Etsy or whatever other marketplace according to what it is. But do you price everything the same on every marketplace, or do you use a pricing strategy? Like, do you price something higher on certain marketplaces because people like to make offers? Do you price things lower because the average sale price on certain marketplaces is lower? Or do you just list everything for the same prices across the board?
So I typically will list everything the same price on eBay, Etsy, and Poshmark. But then with Grailed, how their setup is like after 30 days, if it's still up, to bump it to the top, you have to drop the price by 10%. So usually I'll tack on like $15 extra on each item, depending on the item. Like sometimes if it's going to do well on Grailed, I'm going to post it maybe $50, $60, $70 higher than what would be on eBay. Secret tip.
Cool.
Nice.
Okay. Ale, let's get to the next question.
All right, perfect. So this one is from Marina. How long do you guys let inventory sit before pulling it off the shelf? And what do you guys do with that inventory that you haven't sold?
I don't ever do anything with it. If I've listed it, it lives on the internet now.
Yeah, that's kind of how I am. Like, but I try to do inventory checks twice a year to make sure it's
Yes.
still listed, or like lately with COVID stuff hitting and not getting as much inventory, we are starting to go through, like, if it's been listed for like 6 months or so, we're going to repost it with different keywords, sometimes new photos. Like the photos could just be terrible, and that's actually quite helpful too. So if you can touch up old listings, maybe drop the price, maybe even up the price, because things fluctuate in the market daily, monthly. So that's a way to kind of get rid of old inventory. But
And I do a big clear out every year. So last year at the end of the year, I think I had 50 listings to carry over. Like I'll just clearance the majority of my closet out, but I don't have 10,000 items, right? I usually have 600. So I just did that a couple of weeks ago, and I sold like 500 items in a day. And then I can do after I do that, I do a full inventory of everything that's left to make sure everything is still listed, because there's always things that like fall off, and then I just kind of build it back up.
Yeah, pretty much the same answer for me. So in the book business, when you and I'm sure it's all the same, but like when we're buying books, cherry picking, and our average cost of goods is like $1 or $2 or $1.50, like let's just say $1 on average, and we have 10,000 items in inventory either locally or at FBA, there's just a certain amount that never sell. They're not going to sell ever. They just, maybe you made a little bit of a bad decision when you bought it, or maybe you made a good decision and the market just didn't go your way. But locally, if it's stored locally, the really only pressure to get rid of it is like space, right? Like if you don't have space and you need to get rid of it, then maybe you get rid of it for some new stuff and just throw it away. But or donate it or whatever, get a tax write-off, right, for the amount that you paid for it initially. But online, like if it's at FBA, we're getting charged storage monthly, so we're financially incentivized to get rid of that. So I'd say somewhere around like 5 to 10% of all of the books that I buy never actually ever sell. And so they just get thrown away, whether it's after 1 year or 2 years or whatever, whenever I see fit. It's like you evaluate your inventory when you purchase it. And then with Amazon, right, there's like long-term storage fees. And so if those are coming, you look at everything and you go, those aren't worth paying long-term storage fees. So you trash them. Maybe those are, you know what I mean? And so, but eventually, about 10% of all the stuff you buy is probably going to get thrown away, or donated or whatever. So got to let it go.
Got it. So this is a perfect time for me to insert a shameless plug here, but on Vendoo, one of the favorite features of the users that we have is our delist and relist feature. And we have a button on our site that when you have listings on all these different marketplaces, you can just quickly press delist and relist, and it'll take that listing from an old stale listing that's not getting any interaction, and then immediately make it a fresh brand new listing that shows up in the just in algorithms on all the different marketplaces, which now stimulates views and action on that item again, and allows you to sell stuff that's kind of been sitting for a while. And we get a lot
on all platforms with one click.
On all, so I mean, you have to do each platform individually because we don't want to be categorized as a bot or anything. But it's it literally just takes 5 seconds for each marketplace. You delist immediately. You click relist. It creates a fresh listing immediately with the information, the photos, the pricing, the shipping option, everything. How you
can you do multiple listings at once, or it's one at a time?
One at a time. Right.
Got it.
But that feature has allowed a lot of people to sell a lot of stale inventory that's just kind of been sitting, and that's turned into one of the most popular features that we have on our platform.
That's slick, man.
So whoever asked that question, in case you're not a Vendoo user, you should definitely look into our delist and relist feature, because that might help you stimulate and get some action on those stale items.
Yeah, that's smooth, man.
Now, is it so like eBay though? Like I know there's a difference between relist actually and then sell similar,
right?
Or like do it that way. Is that what Vendoo
So
does
we
with
just
that feature?
we create a fresh brand new listing. So we take that
Okay.
listing that's active. So it would essentially give it a new URL.
Okay.
It would be a new listing.
Yeah.
And what's your background, Josh?
Full-time reseller for about 10 to 12 years before starting Vendoo. Mainly started off with sneakers, and then I've done a lot of work in fashion. So I was doing like styling and image consulting for rappers and athletes and things like that. But my expertise was probably finding like designer vintage and highly coveted streetwear. So I ended up
Nice.
I sell mainly on Grailed as my primary platform. And then I also sell on everything else that Vendoo offers. I sell on Instagram, I sell in person. I do like yearly pop-up shops and things like that. But because I'm not working on this company, I'm just doing everything extremely part-time. But
Right.
my background is full-time reseller for probably since 2005 or so.
So you're not involved with like the coding or anything of the
No,
software.
I'm just marketing. I'm on the marketing end. We have a
Nice.
development team that does all the building. But
Nice. You're the reseller basically.
I'm the user, so I understand what the users need. We build a software that works for me. I use it for my own personal reselling. So that allows me to give feedback and insight to make sure that things are realistic and the workflow is what a reseller would expect, and we can make and kind of tailor the software exactly to what resellers need. That, I mean, my personal expertise and also the feedback that we get from all of our users is what we use to kind of shape the software.
Nice. We got some more questions.
Yeah, let's get a couple more questions in. I think we
All
have
right.
about maybe 10 or 12 more minutes.
Okay, so we have a question for Josh from Jordan. And he says, do you buy wholesale vintage or do you handpick everything that you buy vintage?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah. Whatever I find at thrift stores, and I don't exclusively only just sell vintage. That's just what's been a solid product to sell. But I sell furniture and health and beauty, hard goods, retail arbitrage. I do online arbitrage. I do it all.
Josh does it all. What about Josh? Can you talk about like big store closeouts? Like you've done a few of those, right?
Yeah.
Like buying like an attic of some guy who used to have a store in the 90s or some crazy stuff like that.
Yeah, I've had a few of the, I think like 4 or 5. Or one of my biggest hauls was actually the Detroit Pistons haul. So they moved from Auburn Hills to Detroit, Little Caesars Arena. And so they did a tent sale where they cleared out, because their storage went from like, he said it's going from a mansion to a 2-bedroom apartment. And so they just did a tent sale of all game used merchandise, brand new merchandise, tons of Nike. And I was like, who's in charge? And they pointed to this guy. So I talked to him and was like, listen, I'm trying to spend this amount of money up. Can I do it? He's the guy. Yep. Show up on Monday with a U-Haul at this address. And I got 3 truckloads of piston stuff, and it all
How did you find that deal
in the first like 4 days.
How did you find that deal?
Oh, through my buddy, actually. So they tweeted out that they were having the tent sale, and he threw it in our group message. And we were actually, me and my buddy who works for me full time, were out thrifting. I got the text and I was like, dude, we got to go straight there. I was getting my tires changed. So I had to go pick up my car, and I took him straight to Detroit. And we stood in line because there was a line for like an hour or so. But it was like, I went straight to the front and was like, I want to talk to who's running this and talk to him. So
nice.
I actually bought a mystery box of some of that Detroit Pistons stuff from you.
Did you?
I did. You gave me some pretty cool items. You gave me some game worn like tearaway pants. There was a few like warm up shirts. But it was a good box. It was a really good box.
Well, thanks.
Did you flip it or did you keep it?
I flipped it just because all of it is like game worn for the players. So you have to be 7 feet to wear all of that stuff.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah.
I resold some of it, and I think one or two of the things I still have, just because I'm kind of a vintage hoarder myself. I collect cool
Nice.
stuff that I think is like, I grew up on basketball in the '90s, so some of that stuff was pretty cool to me. So I kept a few of the pieces and sold some of them.
Nice.
Yeah, the dry fit material that is on the player's gear is not available to the public. Like, that material is so much nicer and different, but yeah, like, I have sizes that go to 4XL tall. It's like a dress on me. And then I got some of their shoes. So I think there's Andre Drummond shoes are like size 18, and then Blake Griffin shoes were size 16, I think.
Wow.
They're huge.
Killer score. Nicole, what about that cool tennis dress that you found? How much did you sell that for?
Oh, that was a long time ago. I don't remember. That was a kind of a mess, actually, because eBay allowed people to like put fake bids in, and it became kind of a nightmare. But I did find a Serena Williams, and it was designed for game day. I don't know if it was ever worn in the game or not, but because Nike headquarters is here, we find a lot of like crazy stuff. But I found one of her dresses, and then another who's like another famous tennis player. I don't know sports well enough, but I found
Maria
two player
Sharapova.
dresses. Yes, actually.
She's a cheater.
Sure. So I found two dresses like back to back at different Goodwills, but still, like, it was nuts. And I knew that they were weird because I looked at like the ID tag in them, and it had like some weird saying in it. So I contacted my friend who works at Nike, and they were like, oh yeah, those are made like for the players.
Did it say it was probably a sample, or like?
It wasn't a sample. It didn't have like a sample in it, because I know like the samples here. This was like made for them, and they said it was either a game day worn, or they'll send like 5 of the same things to them.
Like a
Right,
PE, like a player edition version of an item.
No, it was actually made for her. So what they'll do is, like, when they are gonna wear a dress on court or whatever, you're not just gonna send them one, because like, what if they get a stain on it right before they're about to go out? They need to switch it, right? Because they have all their outfits like planned before they go out. So it could have been like one of the 10 dresses they made for that day.
Yeah, that's the crazy amount of stuff that Nike sends to the athletes, because if you always way over order, they were telling me. That's how I have like 3,000 pairs of socks, because you don't want to run out of anything if they need it on the court that instant. And they also change like very small things on the uniform to then further the teams buying their stuff. It's kind of insane.
Okay, let's see if we can get in 2 more questions.
All right, let's see. So here's one question. What are your thoughts on the value of personal branding and or business branding for resellers? And at what stage is it good to spend, like, at what stage is it a good spend of time? What do you guys think about that?
It depends on what you want to do. So like, do you want to brand yourself as, why are you branding yourself first and foremost? Because if you're just reselling secondhand things on the internet and you're using someone else's platform, do you really need to brand yourself? Probably not. But if you want to do social media, like maybe me or Reezy, branding is really important. I have a full-time employee who does all of that for me now. So it really just depends, I think personally, on what you're doing with your business.
I mean, I agree with Nicole if that's what we're talking about, but also there's branding and just being a store yourself, right? So like, Jack's thrift store, Tina's thrift boutique, or whatever it is, Josh, for example, I would say is kind of in the middle, right? So like, he's kind of like done the influencer stuff, not made content, done it just to sell stuff, and there's people that do it not to be an influencer at all, not trying to do YouTube, but they brand themselves out, and they sell direct to their audience through Instagram, or even maybe through YouTube or Facebook Lives, but it's not them teaching you how to be a reseller. It's just you, appreciating them as someone who owns a store and comes across shit that you like. You know what I mean? Like, Josh knows I like Charlotte Hornets, and when he comes across vintage Charlotte Hornets stuff, especially if it's Muggsy Bogues, he's going to hit me up, You know what I mean? Because I'm a customer for that type of stuff. And the only reason I know Josh finds that kind of stuff is because when he posts it on Instagram or wherever, and then people literally just comment like, buy, I'll take it. And those are really easy sells, you know what I mean? So even Nicole herself, who and me and Nicole are definitely far into the influencer spectrum, have had selling through social media as like a main thing in different periods of time, you know what I mean? Because if I do a haul video of all the shit that I bought and I haven't listed it yet, and you're telling me I'll buy that right now for 20, and I was going to list it for 25, I'm selling it to you for 20. And that happens all the time if you're regularly filming videos of the new stuff that you find. So taking those pictures, I mean, I see it all the time. I know,
Yeah, and I think
like a
that's why
bunch
I
of
said,
people
like,
that sell t-shirts, they got their little weird t-shirt guy name,
But that's why it's like, what do you want? I think first the question has to be, what do you want it for? Like, what is your goal in reselling, and then go from there. But I don't think branding like day one is important unless your goal in reselling is to have your own presence in the world. If you just want to use eBay and you're not looking to like expand outside of that, or Poshmark, and you just want to use other people's platforms and you want to sell the stuff you find, then like, is branding that important? Probably not.
Like if you are not, like, let's just make it real simple, right? If you're not trying to get traffic from your audience outside of the platform that you're selling to them on, there's no fucking point, right? The reason why I have a logo and a sticker and a thank you card that says go to my website for a coupon or whatever the hell that I put in my eBay order or whatever is or isn't against the rules, you know what I mean, is so that you can come to my site and buy stuff, and then I don't have to pay 15% fees to eBay, right? Or, whatever, and also so that I can capture your email address on my website, more importantly, and retarget you later when I have new stuff that I know you might like, you know what I mean? Like all of these kind of things. That's why it's really important, not necessarily, like, don't do it. If you're not doing that shit, don't do it. Why? But if you want to, I mean, think of it like a real store. It's no different than a real store, except for there's no store. That's the only difference. I mean, everything else it's actually really different. That was the dumb thing to say, but it's still just traffic, and it's still people, and it's just still shit they want to buy, and you're still selling it to them. You know what I mean? But like, you don't have to just go here. You can be more than just a person on a platform, but not if you brand. But if you're not going to take advantage of the reason to do that, there's no reason to even think about it.
I think that's a perfect response. And let's try to get one more question and then we're going to wrap it up.
Josh liked that email list idea, I could tell.
All right, so let's see which one. All right, so how do you guys know at what price to sell items? Like when you sell them on Amazon or any marketplace, how do you guys know how to price those items that you sell?
I'll do Amazon. Nicole, you want to do Poshmark? Josh, you want to do eBay?
Sure.
Cool.
So, well,
go ahead.
After I kind of have, like, depending on what the item is, if it's just like a basic sweatshirt, I have like a price range where it would be like maybe 40 to 45. But if it's like a nicer brand, then I try to obviously price it higher. If it's like a different material, like just things like that.
It's different because you're super more experienced, but even you, right? If you find something that like, you don't see all the time, or like, you're like, this has got to be worth something crazy Italian. Like, we're looking this up. You know what I mean? Like, you still look some stuff up, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, if it's,
you're just
like
fully comfortable with so much, like what you're saying, $40 to $50. Oh, that's a $40 used sweater.
For clothing, yes. When I go out and look at hard goods and furniture and stuff like that, I do look up. I'll take photos of it and try to reverse image search, or just search. eBay has a cool photo search function. Like, it's not perfect.
That's the furniture. Yeah, but for the furniture, that's probably so useful.
Oh yeah. And that's the other thing. Like, if you want to expand your knowledge in like whatever category, like start joining Facebook groups.
Big
Not to
tip.
promote Facebook. I'm trying to cut that out after Social Dilemma.
Hey, but Facebook groups are the, I still haven't seen Social Dilemma. Should I watch it?
It doesn't paint a very good future.
Facebook groups are
It's
the
everything
hidden
you'll
gem of
already
Facebook,
know.
though.
So
Yeah,
for me, as far as pricing goes, I have a few different things I take into consideration when I'm looking at pricing something. And at this point, I'm pretty comfortable, but I'll speak to what I think, what I would teach someone coming onto the platform. So you want to look at past solds, and then you want to look at the number of past solds. So have 5 sold or have 500 sold. That's very important. And then you want to look at what's listed. So are 5 listed or 500 listed? Now, if you have 5 listed and 500 sold, you can price that at the top of the sold pricing. So let's say the top is around 100 and the bottom, like solds are around 25. If there's only 5 listed, you can probably go up to that $100 range. Now, if it's the opposite, and this is also important, and there's 500 listed, but only 5 sold, you probably shouldn't have bought it. Price it low and get it out of your life.
Yep. Yeah, so that is a basic principle that applies to everything, and that is called thick versus thin marketplace, right? And so, yeah, a lot of people don't talk about that. I'm really glad that you mentioned that, Nicole, because a lot of people just look at the sold, and you need to look at what didn't sell as well. Like in an eBay sense, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, it's sold for $100, sweet. But then when you see the whole story, you're like, wait a minute, that guy that tried to sell it for 100, he's been selling it for like 2 years, and he finally sold it, and it sold like 4 times and got refunded. Like, there's a lot of stories to this, you know what I mean? So if you see only 2 sales in, the last 6 months versus hundreds, and how many are listed also is the other factor, it's whether or not it's going to sell quick, or can you hold on to it longer, or what. But checking eBay comps is obviously standard. Nicole actually taught me to use this app called Completely. There's another one called
app went out of business.
Okay, cool. There's another one called What's It Worth that actually works on Android too, and it's free. Similar.
Sellhound is really good too. So you can use Sellhound and just use their like fetch part of Sellhound, and you type in what you have, and it brings it back from all the different marketplaces. I have a YouTube video on it. You guys can go watch it.
Nice.
But it brings everything in.
And so for Amazon, it's a little different because we can't see solds or comps or whatever. You don't really know what price something sold for on Amazon, but Amazon does have something called sales rank, which measures like what position in line an item is, as far as like as if it was a race on what products are selling the best in each category. Number 1 is first place. Number 2 is second place. I'll try to explain it in like 2 minutes. It's a little hard, but sales rank changes all the time on items. When they sell, it goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down. It doesn't sell, it gets worse. It sells, it goes down. It goes up, 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 sells, goes down. And because of this, over time, a sales rank graph looks like this and has spikes up and down, right? A sales rank graph. So you can look at the graph and count the spikes over a period of time. Josh has a sales rank chart there, and you could see that it sold at least that many times as the sales rank dropped during that time period. It might have sold more. You don't know how many units they bought, but it sold at that time period, right? Especially when there's not a lot of spikes. You could assume it was probably one sale, but because there's multiple offers on an Amazon page, you don't know which offer sold. Was it the new book? Was it the used book? Was it Amazon's offer? Was it the third-party used price, the third-party FBA price? Like who sold? You don't know, but you do know what the prices of those different positions were at the time it sold. And that's how you make an educated guess on what price it is selling at on Amazon.
Awesome.
I didn't realize I was muted.
Go ahead, Josh. And then I want to add something.
But yeah, my lock screen on my phone is Reezy's old
sales rank chart.
Yeah,
so we send those out every month for actually every country that Amazon sells on. So if you guys want
can I get one?
Yeah, just go to my website, resells.com, and there's a little in the hamburger menu, the resources, there's a list for the sales rank chart, and we don't send anything on that list ever. It's just one email a month, and that's the sales rank chart.
All right, I'm in.
Awesome. So I know Josh mentioned earlier that he tries not to look up comps for every item just because it's so time consuming. But what I wanted to say to most resellers is that every sale that you make is information. So if you sell an item and it took you a certain amount of time to sell, it took you a year to sell, maybe the next time you get that same item, you might price it a little bit differently. If you if you buy an item and it sells immediately, then maybe you slightly underpriced it. Next time you find something like that, you might want to price it a little bit higher. But you have to play around with all of these sales over a period of time. It might take you years, but you start to retain that information, and then you add that information onto brand. So when you see a brand, you can kind of already have a range in your mind of how that brand does for you. And every sale you make, the more you can retain that information, the more you have brand recognition, the more you can, like Josh mentioned earlier, the more you can determine fabrics and quality. Something might be cashmere as opposed to cotton. You might have information about that you've acquired from selling for a certain period of time, and you can apply that to your pricing as well.
For example, such things as dress cut names. There's a million different cuts of dresses. I'll never remember them all.
I'm in the same boat.
I'm like, what kind of dress is this? Nicole, 1 second. She's like, oh, that's a bubble dress. Whoa, bubble dress? That would have took me 45 minutes to freaking figure that out.
I still learned anything, but I learned there was a pant called a carrot cut this week from my friend Erica. Thank you, Instagram. But you know, like women fashion is wild. I don't understand it.
Right.
Awesome. So we've had people on here for about an hour and a half, so we want to let everybody get back to their lives. But this was really, really helpful, really informative. I even learned a lot of stuff from you guys. So what we're going to do is, this is recorded, so we're going to put this up on our YouTube channel early next week. If anybody wants to go there and revisit some of the information later. We really, really appreciate you guys for joining us and passing on some of this knowledge and information. Thanks to everyone for being so active in the chat and participating with us. And if you haven't tried Vendoo yet, like we said at the beginning, we have a coupon code, which is webinar40. You can use that code to get 40% off your first month. If you have any questions, you can contact us on any of our socials, or you can send us an email to hello@vendoo.co. And I think that's it. I don't know if you guys have anything you want to say in closing, or anything you guys want to promote before we wrap.
I don't want to say anything in clothing, but in closing, I will say, thanks for showing up, guys. Appreciate your time. Have a good night.
Yeah,
Awesome.
thank you guys thanks for having me. And I appreciate it. I'm really happy and proud of you guys for coming this far.
Oh, I'm sorry. Shout out your socials.
Oh, I'm Nicole State. I'm Nicole State everywhere. I do have a Poshmark course if you want to learn how to sell on Poshmark. I have that available, and I just released a reseller planner for 2021, which is very exciting. And that's about it for me. What about you, Josh?
Mine's Vogue squared, Vogue_squared. And I got nothing to promote. Be nice to each other.
And your closet names are the same if people want to browse through your items?
Yeah, I'm Vogue squared everywhere.
Okay. And Nicole, you're Nicole State everywhere, and Reezy's Reezy Resells everywhere. That's pretty simple. So
yeah.
Thanks everybody for
I
attending.
just dropped a rap album. You guys can go check that out.
Oh my God.
I'm just kidding.
He's not kidding. He has a rap album. No,
it's not new though. In 2012, I thought the world was going to end, so I dropped that rap album I always wanted to do.
Oh, I got to check that out.
Go check it out.
2012?
Because the Mayan calendar, bro, don't you remember? The world was supposed to end in 2012. Like
Stay
December
off the
12th,
news.
2012. The
All right,
Mayans,
everybody.
though. Peace,
Thank
guys.
you. We'll
Thank
talk
you,
soon.
everyone.
All
Take
right.
care. Bye.
Bye.